Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I am Simply G, as always, and I'm going to be talking about the books that I've read for this week. There's a lot. Well, I mean, I read a lot of a few things, if that makes sense. Not really a lot of like singular titles, but a lot of like several volumes of one series, which I think is maybe all right, maybe normal. I don't really know. Nothing digital, and once again, no prose, sadly. I just didn't really have time. I thought I'd have more reading done this week, but I've had actually quite a bit of like personal stuff going on. So it's just been really busy aside from my normal work week. And so, manga is, despite how it may be presented on this channel, is not like the highest priority in my life. I do have other things. So, I guess I'll wait just a little bit to let people come in. Maybe I'll start with the, I don't know. Should I wait? Maybe. Nobody's here to watch right now as it is, so I hope everyone has had a wonderful week. It's kind of been an odd situation here because we've been in kind of a partial lockdown's over, but we've been like mask restrictions again, which was some. So recent restrictions have been kind of a big adjustment for some people. And we've had more confirmed cases as well, so it'll be interesting to see how that pans out over the next couple of days. Yeah, it's not anything super exciting or amazing or anything. Yeah, so I guess I'll just get started. There's no real reason to kind of hang around too long talking, but so the first thing that I read this week, volume 2 of Blue Period. Finally got around to reading this one. Really enjoyable continuation, or the follow up volume to the story of a delinquent who, like, quite a studious delinquent, quite a self-aware delinquent who discovers art in his first or second year of high school. Never really considered it as a real option for himself, but very quickly falls in love with art and how he's able to express himself in a less direct way through his artwork, but perhaps in a more emotionally genuine way. Yeah, I really enjoy this series. I like all of the different artists that they portray. I like the different kind of attitudes towards art and how different people talk about valuing art. I feel like even if you're not an artist, an illustrator, painter, sculptor, etc. yourself, there's a lot about like just passions and having that emotional, genuine expression is still really valuable and still really relatable. Some color pages in this volume as well, and we kind of see a first expansion on the cast with this. We get a little bit further into more of characters and more of the cast and how they interact with each other. This character on the cover is really interesting. They have a lot going on, and despite how people may perceive them, the way that they perceive themselves is always very genuine. And that's brought up pretty directly in this volume in regards to our protagonist and how he interacts with them. Yeah, it's good. It's also has a pretty interesting discussion on like the value of creating art for primarily for university entrance to an art school versus just like being your most unique self, and how attitudes shift and change and things like that. It's very, very good. Definitely. The series was already special, I think, but it just gave a really genuine moment and more heart, perhaps, to a story that was already really engaging, already very emotionally raw and true. And yeah, I do really encourage you to try Blue Period if you haven't. It's well worth the watch, and or the read, I should say. Apologies, I needed to choke on myself. Hello, Ray. Welcome to the live stream. You haven't missed much, I must say. But yeah, so first book that I was talking about was Blue Period. Wonderful. Highly recommended. Really enjoyed the second volume. The next book that I read that was a continuation of a series that I love, and like it should be no surprise that I continue to enjoy this book in this series. And this volume was so funny. I laughed so hard at so many times. And that's Yona of the Dawn, volume 28. Yona and her friends are in the kind of fire, I don't know if kingdom's the right word. And they're trying to avoid the older brother, like the oldest prince. And hilarity ensues. There's some scheming going on, so there's a lot of potential for stuff to go wrong. But oh my goodness, there's an extended joke where basically they knock the prince out, and he has a massive lump on his head, and people kind of keep running into him, and there's also like a joke that the servants' quarters assume that Hawk and Yona are together, so they just give them one bed. Hello, Archangel Manga. Welcome to the live stream. It's a good time. It's fun. It's funny. As per usual, the cast is great. Oh, there's some threats. There's some drama, as always. I think this is really leading into some more serious stuff in the coming volumes. I am very upset and worried for certain characters. But in saying that, as I mentioned, it is very funny, and it continues to be very funny. I think there's a lot to really love with Yona. It's a very popular series for a reason. It's one that really stands out amongst even its peers in the similar genre, and is just continues to be amazing, continues to be brilliant at what it does, and exceeding expectations. Even you go into Yona expecting a level of excitement, engagement, interest, humor, drama, whatever else. And it just continues to exceed those expectations more than really is expected. So, I mean, it's to the surprise of nobody, Yona just continues to be brilliant, amazing. One of my favorite series right now. And it's definitely worth the read. And again, this one is very funny. Can't wait for volume 29. I think there's 36 volumes in Japan right now. Mid-30s. Something along those lines. So, yes. The next single volume, complete in one volume, book that I read and that I expected to enjoy. I really did love this a lot. Is Children of Mootown by Masamura Jushiichi. It's very cursive writing. Hello, Rin. Welcome to the live stream. So this is Glacier Bay's most recent, well, at the time when I bought this, it was the most recent print release from Glacier Bay Books. They do have another print release currently on pre-order, which I will also be talking about, not today, but in the future on the channel. This is a one-and-done book about various young people who live in a apartment building or a kind of residential area that was built post-war, but has kind of just fallen to the elderly. There's a lot of organized crime in the area. There's a lot of unsurety, and so our main characters are trying in their desperation to fix the problems of Mootown, of Murraytown, this apartment building, and it's phenomenal. It's fantastic. Welcome to the live stream, Jamie. Yeah, it's honestly, like, again, I'm a bias because I've enjoyed pretty much every Glacier Bay book that they put out. This has, I mean, like a lot of alternative manga, it has a pretty distinctive art style. And other people have made this comparison before, but it is very evocative and very reminiscent of something like Tekken Concrete, Black and White. It has the similar, like, organized crime, tribalism, us against a larger force and trying to protect ourselves and what we care about attitude, whilst being a little bit, the characters are older. They're in their late 20s. So they're a bit more involved in how they can change the environment around them. But in saying that, it's also incredibly difficult to push against what society has deemed appropriate for an area. This is the same creator as Bakuchan, which has just recently been it's been released digitally in English. You can buy it on Kindle, things like that. It was free for a little while. I don't know if it's still free for Kindle, but I bought it then. I got it then. I haven't actually sat down and read it yet. That one has a lot of, it's basically a story about immigration and immigrants and an immigrant workforce. And that element is in this book as well. So I think it's something that is very prominent, important to this creator. It's just overall a little bit darker and grittier and more mature insofar as, like, how characters deal with the problems around them than Tekken Concrete, but the situation, the emotion, the attachment, the self-preservation or the lack of self-preservation is very, very much like Black and White, Tekken Concrete. It's also just all around a great read. So one of the aspects that, because this apartment building has been on the downturn from like government support, and there's not really a lot of young people in the area, and there's not really a lot of money coming in, and obviously this organized crime element, there's illegal gambling, there's people who can't afford to pay their debts and thus borrow money extensively from the Yakuza, stuff like that, that is just inherent with, you know, societal class disparity. And I think it's done really, really well in this. And then having that kind of desperation to escape that, well, a drive to better where you've been from and to help the people and place that you come from is just so prominent. But then also being able to protect yourself and to treat yourself the best way that you can and get out of a situation, a terrible situation, a potentially, you know, horrific situation before it gets any worse, whilst you can survive. It's just it's so good. I really enjoyed this. I expected to, because I have yet to be disappointed by a Glacier Bay release. And I think it's definitely, if it's something that sounds interesting to you, I would encourage you to try it out. Jamie says that they recommend The King's Beast Volume 1, and I second that recommendation because I do enjoy that series a lot. I enjoy the original series, which is Dawn of the Arcana. I read King's Beast Volume 1 a while ago. I own that one as well, and it was one of my very highly anticipated sequels because I did enjoy the original. The sequel, at least with Volume 1, has been even better, so I second this recommendation. So yeah, that was the third thing that I read this week. And then I have 2 more titles, but I read multiple volumes for each of these titles. So first up, I read 7 volumes of Holic. So we have volume 4, volume 5, volume 6, volume 7, volume 8, volume 9, and volume 10. And my goodness, I mean, again, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but I really enjoyed this series. We've gotten to content that I remember and recognize from the manga. There's such a eeriness to the series. It's very rarely a happy end for a lot of these self-contained chapters. We have a lot more of the Watanuki Domaki relationship coming through with this in several instances, a lot of instances. With this volume, we've had both Domaki and Himawari make wishes or ask for things in order to help save Watanuki, which is just really powerful stuff. I think there's something really wonderful about how this series represents the relationship between the 3 of them. I know a lot of people, and it's intentional. I know a lot of people focus on the Domaki and Watanuki relationship, as they should, but I do think that Himawari is a pretty interesting element to their friendship and how they interact with each other. Friendship in the loosest sense of the word between Domaki and Watanuki, but I just, man, this is, to nobody's surprise, this is absolutely my thing. We have more creepy curses. We have some heartbreaking sort of self-destructive tendencies being shown by Watanuki. We know that he's very disciplined, maybe. He doesn't really care so much about himself to the detriment of himself, which obviously worries the people in his life, to which he is always surprised whenever that happens. And it's just, man, there's so many good chapters in these books. There's so many good chapters. The twins chapter is really wonderful. Obviously, the spider curse stuff is a very important arc, and again, kind of indicates or represents the shift between Watanuki and Domiki with each other as more than just like rival, well, how Watanuki sees this rivalry between them, or annoyance between them. There's the disappearance, when the hands, like he keeps seeing hands all around and then children going disappearing. There's the doll, well, what he perceives as a doll. There's a lot going on. And so with volume 10, I'm a little over halfway through with the original series. There is a sequel series of 4 volumes, Holokure, which, don't worry, you know, believe me, I have my eyes set on it. Several of the volumes are out of print. Pretty much all 3 of the first volumes are very hard to find. But when I'm adamant about something, I put the effort in. Oh, this chapter with the lonely woman whose son died, and so Watanuki keeps visiting her. There's just so much good stuff. There's so much good stuff. It's beautiful. It's atmospheric. It doesn't rely too heavily on referencing everything within the Clamp catalog. Every so often you'll have like, oh, I wonder what Sakura and Shaoran are doing. Let's talk to the other Mokina. But it's not nearly as in your face as my experience with other series. At least it didn't aggravate me as much. And maybe that's just because I inherently like the series more than a majority of the Clamp stuff that I've read thus far. But I don't think it's wrong to say that this one stands on its own merits outside of being a Clamp title, which is funny because it's one of the series that like most directly ties to Clamp stuff, very obviously. So, man, Yuko is just, look at that. Look at that. Yeah. Everything about the series. There's nothing that like immediately jumps to mind that annoys me. I think that Watanuki is like a really interesting, fun character as well. Like I do really like him. He reminds me a lot of a more sassy Natsume Takashi from Natsume's Book of Friends. Natsume is definitely sassy, but he's also a bit more reserved around humans. He's sassy around yokai, whereas Watanuki is tired of humans and the stuff that he's put through because of them. And then he's also even more aggravated from Yuko, despite, you know, respecting her and relying on her and, you know, actually caring a whole bunch about it. But he also has that tenderness for certain ghosts and spirits and yokai that he comes across. So it's quite, yeah, again, I mean, that's also not inherently a wrong statement. Watanuki is an interesting little little kid. No, he's oh, the arc where he's young and little and like he meets a guy who helps him or tells him about throwing salt, and it hurt my heart. There's a lot of volumes that hurt my heart because it'll kick you in the chest. Hello, bizarre individual. Welcome to the live stream. I mean, Wadanoki is definitely sassy. Look at that. He knows that he's killing it with that hat. No one else could pull off that jacket, but also he's just always so done with Domaki and such. I mean, obviously Yuko's gorgeous, so of course she's going to be on the covers. But it's always interesting to see how Watanabe is portrayed on the back covers because he's important. And he's the protagonist. But the fact that the protagonist is never on the cover himself is like a pretty interesting aspect of the series. And I'm not complaining. I'm certainly not complaining. And again, costuming in the series is fabulous, as per expected with Clamp. If nothing else, they are great with their costumes, great with their fashion. Even if sometimes that aspect aggravates me a lot. I just get kind of bored of it. This, I don't have... Am I going to buy / read, right? Yes, Ren. Absolutely. No question to that. I know certain spoilers, so I know kind of what that aspect of the sequel is. Obviously, I haven't read any of it. And as mentioned, certain volumes are hard to find and out of print, but I've already bought them, and I already have copies. I don't know when I'll be getting volumes 1 to 3, but 4 is on its way. So at some point, that will show up in a pickup video sometime. But yeah, I mean, it's been such a positive experience with Holic, especially again compared to my usual experience with Clamp stuff, that I just had to. I didn't want to wait and miss the opportunity to continue the series, even not having finished it, because I know that I'm going to like it. I know that I'm going to continue to enjoy it because I know that it keeps this general trend of being extremely good up. It might get into a little bit of Clamp silliness in the ending bit, but I can live with that when it's so solid throughout the entirety of the rest of it. I'm not like internally cringing because of a terrible fated age gap romance. I'm not like super uncomfortable or bored or like confused and feel dumb because I'm missing references to other series. I just enjoy it on a level that is quite unique to this particular series versus the rest of Clamp stuff. And I think that's pretty blatantly obvious. I'm not unbiased, of course. But that's all I can really say for it. Finally, I read. I did want to read more of this just because I've borrowed more of this from the library, and I kind of want to return it all at once, but I didn't get through it all. Jamie, you are giving a lot of recommendations, and I'm not up to date with Seraph of the End. I've certainly read it. I've read all of Demon Slayer, so they're solid. They're solid recommendations. I can't disagree, but I did not read either of those or any of those this week, so I can't really talk about them. I've talked about them before. I feel like I've talked about them before. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But finally for this video, and for this week's reading, I read volumes 11 to 15 of Ore-sama Teacher, which is Izumi Tsubaki's 29-volume comedy romance series. So Izumi Tsubaki is the creator of Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun, which in my opinion is a much funnier series. This one is also, like, it has its moments. I don't find it super funny. The characters, for the most part, are still all pretty likable dumbasses. There's a lot of, like, good kids who do stupid things, who are just inherently stupid, and that's what makes them interesting and fun and likable in this series. But rather than being focused on, like, shoujo manga and the tropes of that, this is focused more so on so it's about a girl who in middle school was a delinquent, and the head of, like, this big group of delinquents. But she was causing too much trouble, so she was sent away to this other school, and she's trying to reinvent her image. She doesn't want to be a delinquent anymore. She wants to be like a normal girl, but she finds out that her homeroom teacher, as well as her, like, apartment neighbor, is actually her not long lost, but, like, her childhood friend who is, like, a good 10 years older than her and was a delinquent. It's kind of implied that his behavior or his attitude or whatever is what inspired her to become this delinquent. And now, so anyway, he's the grandson of, like, the guy who started the school. He's trying to save it from the current principal and student council president and all sorts of things, because they're being threatened that the school will shut down, be sold to, like, land developers if they can't boost attendance within 3 years. So because the school itself has lost a lot of popularity because most of its students for a long time were delinquents. So they have to double attendance or something along those lines, double or triple attendance in 3 years. So this ex-delinquent, she, by way of this childhood friend who is also her teacher, who knows all of her deep, dark secrets, and who's, like, kind of using that to blackmail her / encourage her to join the Public Morals Club in order to, again, boost attendance and prevent delinquent-caused issues. And it's just a bunch of silly characters doing silly things. It is definitely too long. I will say that, like, some of the characters that have been introduced later in the series, like this guy, are funny, but they're also, like, there's a lot of stuff in here that is funny. It's fine, but again, Nozaki-kun is a much funnier experience. I don't find this, like, immensely hilarious. There's some funny jokes, and like with Nozaki-kun, it, like, each character has a shtick, and the jokes kind of stick to that shtick. So this is volume 11. Volume 12. This character as well, like, oh my god, he is pretty, like, he's a good addition to the cast. I liked him. Hello, Aisha. Welcome to the live stream. Volume 13, which has our main character and her various personas as well, because she doesn't want to be found out, because she's still doing delinquent stuff. But she doesn't want her normal girl image to be dispelled, although nobody thinks of her as a normal girl except for these dumb boys who don't have a lot of insight to anything anyway. Namely her best friend, who looks like a delinquent, but he's actually like a very good boy. These characters, this is a okay arc, not brilliant, but you know, we have to normalize the student council because they're all characters too. And then volume 15 was the last one that I read. And again, like, I don't really care. I didn't really wasn't that interested in this particular character, so the storylines that make up a lot of this book aren't. The school trip stuff was pretty funny. Just because, again, it's like these idiot kids who are like, what do we even do at on a trip, because we're delinquents and we've never been on a trip before, and so they're dumb jokes. They get a chuckle. They're not like hilarious comparatively to, again, this creator's other work. It's also probably not helped by the fact that this is like a regular manga, quote unquote, whereas Nozaki is 4-koma. So I feel like the jokes are just a bit punchier in that one. This is just like straight up a normal series, panel wise, versus Nozaki. Art wise, comedy wise, it's pretty in line with what you can expect. Some characters are really fun to read about, others are okay. We've got this grand mystery of like, will her best friend realize that she's actually a super tough fighting girl who can beat up guys, and she doesn't inherently need protection, or will he just never know? Will her ex followers from her old school, because they always are up to their own shenanigans. There's one guy from another school, there's one guy who's just like super unlucky. Just like the unluckiest guy. Everything that happens to him is unlucky. And he goes to like some rival school. And then there's one of the characters, current delinquent characters at her current school, who's just like the luckiest guy. I'm like, I guess if there's one guy who's just like the unluckiest person in the world, there's got to be another guy who's the luckiest guy. But they're not like related. They've never interacted. So it's kind of like, that's a weird gimmick to kind of use and reverse within the same series. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. There's a lot of cross-dressing in this series as well, because one of her personas is this hot boy version of herself, and then this is Super Bun, which is her in a mask. And again, her best friend just like doesn't realize that it's her, even though they are the same height and their bodies are exactly the same and they speak the same way. And I'm just like, I don't. All right. Again, it's not meant to be taken too seriously. It's not meant to be like some brilliant literature, but personally, it's super long. This is also one that's only print only after certain volumes. So I think like volume 10 or 12 is the last digital release that this series got. So you have to, if you're wanting to complete the series or continue the series, you have to buy it physically. And almost 30 volumes, it's just kind of, I don't think it's worth it. I would much more recommend Nozaki-kun, because that one's actually very consistently funny. None of the shticks have gotten boring. The jokes are punchier because perhaps the format, and I think that the satire of shoujo manga tropes is generally more funny than like, oh, she doesn't know how to be a girly girl, and she's trying to hide that she's actually this tough girl because she idolizes girly girls, but she just doesn't know how to be one. But despite that, her friends love her all the same. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine for what it is. I also don't know, like, romance-wise how the series goes, because obviously there's an implication that as childhood friends, there's something going on. There's potential there with the teacher character, and there's a lot like implied with their background. Where is this teacher character? It's not on any of these covers, but oh, yeah, here, this guy. So I'm like, I don't really want a romance to end up with them because I don't like that. I'm not into that. Even if they're childhood friends, the age gap is like at least 10 years. It might be 8, but like it's a lot. It's a big one, and he is a teacher and she's a student, and I'm just not here for it. Yeah. Again, it's one that I'm not like angry that I'm reading it. I don't hate it. I think it's effective at what it's trying to do, why it's doing the things that it does, but I also would never buy this of my own volition and be like, yes, I'm going to dedicate shelf space, an entire bookcase shelf, to this one series, because I just don't think it's worth that, really. But yeah, this has been a very short live stream, unless people have certain comments or whatever that they want to make. To recap, we have 5 volumes, volumes 11 to 15 of Orasama Teacher. We have 7 volumes of Holic, volumes 4 to 10, which is marvelous and wonderful, and I love dearly with all my heart, and has, as expected, become my very favorite clamp title, Holic title. I finally clamp title, and just continues to be amazing and brilliant and everything that I want from the series, and I can't wait to read more. Perhaps this time next week I'll have finished the main series. Who knows? Because once I start, honestly, like I keep going. I can't stop. So that's a thing. And then we have the single volume, Children of Mootown. This is Glacier Bay's most recent print release. Fabulous, wonderful, very evocative of Tekken Concrete or Black and White. It's focused on, I guess, ownership and belonging and societal issues, things like disparity between class systems and that forgetting of an older generation and dismissal of the lower classes, things like that. And again, organized crime, and they're in relation to that, how people can come out of those situations or try to fix those situations, and how impossible that can seem without support, without some larger push from something else, and also surviving that situation, perhaps not being able to achieve what you wanted to or what you felt was you needed to, but being able to look after yourself ultimately and do what's best for you whilst actually getting out of the bad situation. Beautiful, absolutely highly recommend that series, or that book. Unit of the Dawn 28, amazing, brilliant, love it, hilarious. This one's laying the foundation for a whole bunch of extra stuff to happen. It had me on the edge of my seat, but also cry laughing, and it was phenomenal. As always, Yona's fabulous and continues to be fabulous. And then the first thing that I spoke about is Volume 2 of Blue Period, the continuation of the art manga about a teenage delinquent who discovers art and how he can express himself more emotionally, genuinely through art in a way that he never kind of understood or expected. And the creative process, the artistic mind, how artists struggle with that expression, that self-expression, and how people I guess experience art and how that can be a very unique thing. This really built off of the first volume, which I already adored, and this just solidified it as fantastic, phenomenal. One that you can definitely understand why has gotten so much popularity, has won so many prizes. Great book, and I can't wait to read more of the series down the line. So a couple questions here. Archangel Manga asking if I've read Tono Monogatari yet. Not yet. I do have it. I did receive it, and it is on the to read pile. I did actually want to read it this week. I was keen to get the horny yokai book. I love Mizuki's manga. I like really weird, unusual, off the wall, perhaps obscene or in your face shocking that that some aspects of Tono Monogatari can be. But I just that's part of why I like creepy supernatural stories anyway. Folklore is not, it's not Disney movies, despite what some people may think. And I always really enjoy folklore and like monster lore and those sorts of things, creatures that are so weird and unusual, and then seeing why that story is being told, like why someone thought it would be a compelling story. And sometimes it's just like, hey, isn't that shocking? Isn't that weird? And sometimes it's a larger exploration of human emotion, human experience, the universal idea of fear or unsurety or greed, anxiety, jealousy, things like that. It's just really, I'm actually like very keen to read it, and it was a book that I pre-ordered day one. So the fact that I haven't read it yet for this week is somewhat of a testament to how my week in general has been. Personally, I just didn't want to get into too much. I didn't have a lot of time to read the stuff that maybe was my highest priority, because I wanted to save it for a time that I knew I'd appreciate it more. Maybe that doesn't make sense, but regardless, I do hope that people buy Tono Monogatari, because I love Mizuki's manga. I love the fact that we're getting more Mizuki manga, that a lot of his older stuff is being reprinted. I'm hoping one day we see the Kitaro Omnibus reprinted, because that's going for a lot of money. But in saying that, pick up the single editions, the 7 volumes that Drawn Quarterly have put out. Showa is fantastic, especially if you're a history buff, if you're interested in the Showa period, in that huge period of time of change that obviously Mizuki experienced firsthand and was very directly involved with some of the most tumultuous aspects of. It's just I hope you enjoy it because it's very, very good, and I think he gives a very balanced look at all aspects, especially the wartime stuff. For those who don't know, Mizuki was a very like anti-war mangaka. A lot of his works were about the atrocity of war and how it was a shame in Japan's history during a time where that really wasn't acknowledged. Japan didn't want to kind of encourage the idea that, you know, they did terrible, terrible things. But being on the front lines and experiencing that firsthand and surviving that, as one of the few people who did and was able to come home, is just really powerful. And not glorifying Japan in this nationalistic, like, oh yes, we did nothing wrong, we were always in the right, but also not like inherently vilifying the hundreds and thousands of just normal men who were sent to the war front as soldiers, and more so focusing on the actual greater power that was pushing these agendas of, they didn't care about their own soldiers. They didn't care about, obviously didn't care about the enemy. It's just really, really well done. And I highly encourage people to read Mizuki's manga in general. I mean, I will always say read his yokai manga first and foremost, because that's the stuff that he loved, that you see such joy and creativity and interest and love in stuff like Kitaro. But his historical manga, his anti-war manga, semi-biographical manga is so important in how, I mean, against the grain that it was in its time. And it's I think a very important perspective to have, and I'm so glad that we do have it in English. So buy Mizuki's manga because it's worth it. It's worth every cent. But again, I may be biased, and I don't care because I'm here to push my agenda. Finally, Rin has said that she can't believe Holocaust has been on hiatus for years while Clear Card is near its 10th volume. And to that, I agree, my friend. I want more. I said this last week, and I know that Clamp is like, I understand why they'd want to focus on Clear Card because everyone and their cat loves Cardcaptor Sakura, but I actually don't like it that much. And I don't really care about the sequel, despite I have been reading it. I, in fact, have some volumes back there from my library to read. And once I catch up on the physical editions, I'll keep up to date with the Simulpub chapters. But I just also don't care. Like, I just think that Holic is better. I don't want more. The thing is, like, Sakura's story was finished. It was ended at the end of Cardcaptor Sakura. There's not really much more to explore, and I feel like I understand milking a franchise because it's popular and because that's what people want from you, but at the same time, was there really a need to tell more of Sakura and Shaoran and Tomoyo and etc.'s stories? Or was it that you can make cute figures of a 10-year-old girl in 400 different outfits and charge $300 for them because it's the 25th anniversary of the main series and people have nostalgia and it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's you know, it became popular for a reason, and I will never take that away from it. But I also don't care. Like, it was done. It was over. I was happy, quote unquote, with the ending of the original Cardcaptor Sakura. It was open-ended, but it was open-ended in a final, like a finale style. It didn't need to be expanded. Whereas from everything that I know about stuff like Holic Ray, Drag and Drop, and all of their other various titles that have been on hiatus for decades, years if not decades, then I don't understand why. Because I feel like Holic was super popular. Tsubasa's follow-up, World Chronicles, seemed to be fairly well received, and I can understand that, especially because of just the mess that Tsubasa became. But like, as Aisha has been putting in the chat, like, Drag and Drop, the fact that it went on hiatus and then came off of hiatus for the sequel, in a similar way to what Holic did, or it ended and then started a sequel a couple years down the line. I don't know, just commit to the sequel. Don't just put out a couple volumes and be like, oh, well, we're kind of bored of that. I mean, creative liberty and control to everyone, and they're free to do with their series what they want. But I just feel like if you build up to something and you've got a lot of foreshadowing and you got a lot of like inbuilt interest, and if people seem to be wanting to read more and getting into these titles, obviously you thought that there was enough story to continue it, or enough interest to expand on the universe once you've completed it. I mean, Drug and Drop is just like I don't even know why Legal Drug ended where it did, and then that's just a whole mess. And I can understand why X has been on hiatus forever because of earthquake powers and the issues of depicting that in Japan. But I just don't understand why Holic has never come back. I don't know why like Gate 7 started. I feel like, and I've said this before, I respect that Clamp puts out the content that they want to see in the world. I respect that they only make the stuff that they're actually really interested in, but at the same time, I feel like because of their massive popularity, thanks to stuff like Tokyo Babylon and X, which obviously is related to Tokyo Babylon, and Cardcaptor Sakura and Holic and Tsubasa, and just like a million titles that got them to this point in popularity. And I mean, even going all the way back to Wish, they just need an editor to like rein them in a little bit, or at least be like, hey ladies, do you have like a plan for this, or are you gonna stop at 2 volumes and then go on hiatus for another 20 years? Because I'm like, should we start this new series like with these ideas, or oh my god, you know what's gonna happen? Because I've just thought about it, and apparently the universe hates me, because I honestly feel like at some point Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card will end. Who knows when? It might be in 15 years, because why kill the cow when it's still giving out milk? But I don't want it to be true, but I have the horrible feeling that something like Chobits or Kobato or any of these things that I don't care about will continue. Because, like, honestly, if Hulk came back, if X came back, if Drag and Drop came back, thumbs up. That's great. Can definitely, like, those need continuations. Everything else, no oh, Rig Veda. Could you imagine? Could you imagine more Rig Veda in this world? I would die. I would die. Get really angry. Not angry. I get just and these are all hypotheticals. I'm just getting myself upset over hypotheticals. And I guess, like, what's that other series? Angel? Angelic Layer. I guess Angelic Layer is the sequel to Chobits. But, like, no. No. Clover's also. Maybe I'm just dumb, but, like, was there a point to Clover? Was there a point to Clover outside of being, like, aesthetic? Maybe. I don't. Hated that book. As you may have noticed, whilst I appreciate aesthetic, I kind of have to care about what's going on and, like, have characters that matter and aren't just, like, I find them hot and or cute. I mean, it's not a bad thing if they're hot and or cute, but, like, I just don't care. And so many of their stuff is just mess of, like, references to other things. So many of their characters are, like, and again, Drag and Drop. I don't remember his name. The guy, the boy, the main character. He's so stupid. How are some of these people so stupid and still alive? That's I don't understand. You know, it's a weird one, and I can appreciate, as always, I must reiterate, I can appreciate the Clamp do what they want to do. But as I say fan in the loosest sense of the word, as someone who enjoys one of their series, finds, like, ideas in some of their other series pretty interesting. I don't want more Card Captor Sakura. I certainly don't want more of, like, a lot of their other series. Just finish what you started. Just finish. And it's not, like, and the thing is, as well, is, like, I would understand if it was health related. And I know it's harder when there's multiple people working on something and real life gets in the way. And being a mangaka is such a strenuous job anyway. But, like, then why not just retire? Just be like, oh, thanks for all the time together, guys. But no, they're still making manga. They just don't. I am selfish, and I want them to make the manga that I care about. I mean, I complain about it. I'm happy for fans who are into it, but it's not something that thrills me. But in saying that, I will continue to read Holic and enjoy it, I'm sure. I've yet to jump into some of the other titles that I've mentioned, although I do want to get into Tokyo Babylon /X. Chobits. I have read a little bit of Card Captor Sakura Clear Card. I have really no interest in Gate 7, but I kind of, again, am morbidly curious. I don't understand why, like, Clamp School Detectives exists, but, like, that's a thing. All over the place. All over the place, frankly. And so yes, I didn't even have anything that I was upset about in regards to Clamp, but I still talked about it for 20 minutes. So that's the state of my life right now. Thank you guys as always for hanging out with me. I know this was a shorter one. I read a lot. Like, I shouldn't say that I didn't read much. I did read a lot, but I also read a lot of like the same series. There's not like various different series. Aisha, all I know about Clamp School Detectives is that there's detectives in school, and that last week someone told me somebody was dating a kindergartner, and I was like, that's not a good time. Also, if somebody's dating a kindergartner, does that mean that there's a Kobato reference? Because if there is, I will riot. I hate Kobato like a lot. I didn't expect to, but man, that series like made me upset. I know they're all kids. I know I'm not saying that an adult is dating a kindergartner, but a 5th grader dating a kindergartner is still weird. Like, that's still a lot of big yikes. Nobody should be dating a kindergartner unless they are also a kindergartner, and dating for them means holding hands and not, oh yes, we are in a relationship and we are, I don't know how this relationship plays out, but I also do know Clamp. So that's just a big yikes. Yeah, I mean, again, I do want to read Tokyo Babylon. I just don't know if any of my libraries have the full series. And by extension, I want to read X, despite, the forever hiatus. Because Clamp, if nothing else, has really interesting ideas. Even the stuff that I dislike, well, not everything that I dislike from them, but a lot of the stuff that I don't like or I don't think is executed well from them is still an interesting idea. And that may be a issue or a perk of having 4 brains working on an idea versus just 1 or 2. But they sure do love their certain tropes and storylines. Aisha, I can't believe it's you who's telling me this about a kindergartner dating someone. She is. Aisha's here to. She woke up and chose violence this morning because I don't. I know you excuse a lot, but like, I can't jive with that one. Maybe if I read it and was like, man, truly, this is fate. And this 5-year-old understands what love is and thus can date this 10-year-old and or 12-year-old, however old these school detectives are. Or whoever. I don't even know, but it's just, no thank you. No thank you. Which sucks because I do think that like the idea of kids doing like solving mysteries is pretty cool, and that's maybe why I'm going to be watching versus reading Pretty Boy School Detective, but then that's also Nisio Ueson, so I typically do enjoy his stuff despite another person who thinks they're very clever. It's an interesting premise. I mean, Hyoka is definitely not the same thing, but like I do like the idea of like mundane detective story school setting stuff. Okay, all right. This is nothing to do with anything, but this I was reminded I should never click on tweets that I know are going to be full of just stupid opinions, but I can't help myself. Sometimes I just do. And so there was a tweet that was like, hey, what's a series that you return to? And like when you were young, you thought it was the coolest shit. And then now you rewatched it as an older person and you think, and it's like actually terrible. And somebody put Hyoka and I almost fucking rioted. Like I just, oh my God. And like there's not even any mystery solving. And like, excuse me, do you think actual like real life teenagers in high school are going to be solving murders? That is not the point of that show, and the fact that you think it is means you missed the whole point of the show. And also, you were never that kid, because I can 100% guarantee that I think the fact that anime is, and manga by extension, is so like, there's obviously this idea that a lot of protagonists are high school kids, and they're, in giant robots and solving the world's problems and fighting crime and this, that, and whatever else. That when you have a realistic, grounded series, or series that is set in real life and has teens who don't have magic powers, who aren't trying to save the world, who aren't actually like the reincarnation of Sherlock Holmes or whatever bullshit the premise is, people don't understand that, like, that's the point. And it made me angry. It made me like legitimately upset, because Hyoka is, one, my favorite series, but two, I just don't understand how you miss the point so hard, especially as someone who presumably is older than when you watched it, and maybe is out of school, so you understand that idea of a rose-tinted life and nostalgia, and experiencing your high school experience to the best of your ability through mundane experiences, and seeing the positive, and like enjoying yourself despite not having magic powers and solving the world's problems and fighting giant robots. Sometimes it's just a bunch of kids who are too smart for their own good, who like to speculate and do logic puzzles, who solve mundane mysteries that have no real impact on anyone, and who hang out and are friends, and there's sort of a love story, and it's great, and it's about growing up basically, and being a high schooler. So yes, that was my today in Twitter stupidity, hot take that nobody cares about, because that's also like, nobody knows what I'm talking about insofar as like the people who tweeted that, and I'm not going to give them airtime. Like I don't engage with stupid people on Twitter, hopefully, like typically. Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I understand this sentiment, but also I read a lot of stuff that is full of taboo topics, perhaps not immediately obvious from the cover or anything, but also I'm a grown adult, and so I'm allowed to read weird shit. But in saying that, the weird shit that I read is like Eroguro, Fire Punch / Chainsaw Man, all of the weird yokai stuff. I mean, Eroguro, by extension, stuff like MADK, shit ton of BL, shit ton of Yakuza BL. I don't know, like, I don't really care if my mom is like, "Oh, what is this?" and is like, well, she just wouldn't do that. She's not interested enough to be like, "Oh, I'm going to go snooping to see what's in your collection. Let me flip through this book." But also, I don't care. I'll just be like, "Yeah, it's good. It has weird stuff in it, but that's cuz it's a weird thing." Anyway, sometimes stories are just weird, and that's what makes them good. And again, it's all in the execution. Just because something has weird stuff in it, or taboo topics, or pushes the envelope. As long as it's not like, hey guys, pedophilia actually is a good thing. And hey guys, did you know that like we should get rid of immigrants? Those aren't weird things. Those are actually straight up abhorrent, immoral. Well, immoral is a weird word, but like criminal, just inherently so wrong as a human being compared to, I don't know, interesting taboo subjects. Because also, and it doesn't make Archangel manga. I mean, maybe your mom is just super interested, but also like, would you feel the same way about, I don't really remember what's in your collection immediately, but like stuff like Gantz has a lot of like very taboo topics, very, very problematic depictions of certain things, straight up racism, insofar as like a lot of stuff like terraformers, whatever that, the Mars cockroach manga, straight up racist, like blatantly so. But people are like, that's not even a problem. And I'm like, how can you literally not see that? Like, I feel like that would be a bigger issue than being like, oh yeah, this is a dark fantasy or like a dystopic future that also has aspects of cannibalism, which in context makes sense. There's no in context that makes sense that it's like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm 25, but yes, I'm dating a 12-year-old. It's fine. This is normal. It's okay. Destiny told me it was okay. Because that, even if there's an in-universe explanation for that, it's all bullshit. Because you know the reason that it's been written, because there's no in-universe, real-world explanation for that isn't fucking creepy. Unless we have a Lolita situation where it acknowledges the creepiness factor versus being like, no, actually, this is true love. Like, you can explore dodgy or taboo or morally abhorrent whatever themes. One of my favorite series, Devil's Line, explores pedophilia, for example, but it's done with the knowledge that like the creator isn't like, actually pedophilia is good. Actually, this might, people, a 25-year-old can love a 12-year-old and it not be weird. It's like, no, it's not. Actually, it's bad, and you should acknowledge that it's bad. Yes, some people inherently have a problem, but it is their responsibility to not act on that problem, and we need better understanding of how to treat and or prevent those issues from impacting real-world vulnerable people, children, because right now, being like, oh, yes, my sexy 9,000-year-old dragon girlfriend is actually 9,000, so you can't even, you're the weirdo if you think that she looks like a 5-year-old. you're the weirdo, is not helping anyone. It's not helping anyone. It's exacerbating an issue, and it's normalizing a big fucking issue in fandoms, in how and in like how people outside the community see the community as well. Like, does it not bother people either that like some normies, quote unquote, think all anime is hentai, or like all anime has, you know, sexy 6-year-olds, and that's just not like fine? Or are other people also worried? Like, again, I don't care what people think about my hobbies and me enjoying my hobbies, but also as a fan of an art form, wouldn't you want to be taken more seriously than like, oh, that weird shit from another country? Oh, that I'm just going to assume is fetish porn or whatever. It just it makes me I feel like there's a larger conversation to be had, and again ties into like what is popular, what is touted as the best of the best, the current like favorite series, stuff that people are exposed to, normal people are exposed to in their day-to-day interactions, or brief like popular culture of that mentions anime, stuff like that. There needs to be a larger conversation on how we not only represent ourselves as fans, how this art form that we inherently, apparently, enjoy so much is talked about, and how that doesn't mean that, you know, your mileage may vary, or like your kink is not my kink, or whatever stuff is wrong, or that attitude is wrong, but also that it's gotten to a point that it's straight up making people like pedophile apologists, people who are like, no, actually, there's nothing wrong with pedophilia. There's nothing wrong with characters or like abusive relationships. If we're talking about romance manga, there's a lot of that. Or any of these issues, you can have a conversation. You can be a fan of something and still have the problems, still recognize the problems in those things. But also, people need to learn the difference between like exploring a topic, talking about a topic, having a conversation about a topic, and then how that topic is represented. I am adamant in that, like, I don't think art should be any one way, and I don't think that, you know, it's wrong for a series if they want to have sexy 6-year-olds. Like, it's gross and it's weird. I'm not going to stop people from making it, and I also don't inherently think the creator is like confirmed pedophile, lock them up, you know, throw away the key, any of that. But I also don't dislike how an attitude that like protects that freedom, or against that freedom of expression and artwork, inherently puts you on a side of like, well, we should just not criticize anything. Everything, nothing's taboo. We should explore everything, which I think is fine. You know, I think that's fine especially when we're talking about art. But I just don't want it to then be like, okay, but now it's normal and it's fine to think that 10-year-olds are sexy. It's normal and it's fine to want a murderous boyfriend who treats you like shit. It's normal and fine to think that rape revenge fantasy is a cool and totally normal way to handle a girl dumping you or rejecting you or how you never getting a date. Like, though, there's some things inherent in media that need to be discussed, and I think right now aren't being discussed in a civilized, intelligent, being the primary word there, way, wherein it's helpful in how the community interacts with each other as well. I went on a big weird tangent there, a weird big tangent, but hopefully, like, what I was saying made sense. I don't know. I got kind of muddled in the middle there, but I also, you know, if you enjoy certain things, I'm not going to inherently, assume things about your personality, but like, I also dislike the normalization of things. And if you're such an avid defender of something to where it's like just beyond, and there's no actual conversation between the two sides, there's no actual like sharing of ideas, of discourse, if you will, and not in the like tweet, I'm gonna quote retweet you and gotcha, but like actual discourse of a conversation and debate, that sort of thing, you're inherently never gonna be able to address these problems, fix these problems, and things get worse and worse and worse. And we see that with the amount of like weirdos, super fascist, like racist, bigoted, sex pest weirdos who inhabit online spaces and who see anime and Japanese media as a refuge for that. Like the way that some people talk about Japan, the Orientalism of Japan, it's also creepy and weird. Like it's a country with as many problems and varied opinions and people in it as any other country. And it's certainly not, how media depicts it, as I'm sure any country and any media is never, how media depicts it. Yeah, but it's all cartoons. You can't think about it that seriously, G. Stop trying to have an informed, intelligent discussion like an adult about actual issues and worries, because we just want to read comics and it's not that serious, and manga isn't political whilst I'm reading Attack on Titan or Ghost in the Shell or Death Note or any of these. How dare you assume that Japan has politics? How dare you assume that Tanya the Saga of Evil is anything but a girl who's in charge of an army? What? How? No. I'm like, oh, I feel like talking to a brick, like it's talking to a brick wall sometimes. But again, I'm a smart person and just don't get involved with online discourse directly anymore because I don't need that negativity in my life. And it seems like there's a new stupid person every single day, and it's exacerbated because people like to gotcha them. And I also wish that people on Twitter stop trying to be Mr. Smarty Pants and being like, haha, you got a thing wrong, and I'm going to show how big brain I am by quote retweeting you and making everyone see your bad take, when if I just ignored you, your 3 followers would be like, that's stupid, and nobody else would have ever seen it. Yeah, I've heard that sort of sentiment in regards to Pipochu. It's not particularly uh like it's not one that I'm ever gonna buy. I might check it out through the library. It's an interesting case, obviously, because it's from a French mangaka, and I think obviously has that awareness of the foreign perception of Japan through its media because of that. But yeah, it's probably not a buy series for me, but it is interesting to see how, like, even within the media itself, like within manga and anime, things like that itself, it talks about these issues and people ignore because, oh, you're overthinking it, and oh, you know, how dare you imply something that I enjoy and didn't realize, and don't like to critically engage with. How dare you imply that I'm doing something wrong and not understanding something that I obviously am the biggest fan of all time about, because haven't you seen me and my 400 tweets about who would win in a fight against two characters who are both fictional, so it doesn't matter anyway. um didn't you see my breakdown of all the stats? How dare you imply that I don't know thing about series, because I have dedicated my life to said thing. And by that I mean I watched it, and my friends told me that I know a lot about it, and I don't actually know anything about the creator or the history behind it or the community behind it or like any. Again, I'm ranting about things that I think are just inherent to how I'm sure you guys know that I feel about these issues. Like I don't think this is new information to any of you, and it doesn't have anything to do with what I read, because I didn't have any of those issues because I liked. Well, I mean, Orasama Teacher is fine. It's like, eh. But everything else was wonderful. And it's, maybe just a bonus for the live streams, because I try to be, when I do haul videos, well, typically everything, I love everything in a haul video, so I'm not that negative. I'm never going to lie about my feelings on something. Like if I dislike a book, I will tell you. Oh, is he American? Why did I think he was French? Apologies. Thank you for the correction, Tracy. I feel like I try to be positive about the thing. I try to talk about the things that I'm positive and enthusiastic about, because I think there's just a critical issue with hyperbole and exacerbating and emphasizing bad takes or like upset or hatred or whatever else. Clickbait, basically, within all sorts of content creation, media creation, whatever. Like if you're on the internet, you're always going to be more popular if you can post a thumbnail where you're going, and then it's like, is this the worst series of all time? And then you're going to have people who are like, oh, what are they talking about? Is it the worst series of all time? Or, how Sao is better than, how Sword Art Online beats Attack on Titan in every way, and then have like a devil emoji and like a grumpy face. That's obviously going to get more interest. You're obviously going to get more traction. But I also think it's just like, maybe if you care about subscribers and you care about having a social media presence where despite, I guess, being a larger channel in the manga community, manga tube community, I guess. And I'm not anymore. Like, I wouldn't regard myself as one of the biggest channels or bigger channels. But at least with the people who hang around with me, apologies. I mean, I only have 5 people on the live stream right now, but at least I know that these people actually care about what I'm talk about, or like care about or have a genuine interest in the things, maybe not in the series that I enjoy or in the series that I talk about, but they value my opinions on things or my criticisms or things, or they just appreciate maybe the actual nuanced discussion that I bring to some things, or maybe you guys just all love me ranting about Clamp every week. That's also the possibility. I get it. I would too. But that's but I feel like for the 3,000 odd subscribers that I have on YouTube, for the 1,000 something subscribers or followers or whatever on Twitter, that a majority of the people who follow me, interact with me, know me, and know my content, do so because they find value in it outside of just like waiting to see if I say something dumb or to get outraged over a very obviously overhyped, over hyperbolized opinion that is made to incite upset because that gets social media like engagement. Why would anyone want to be an influencer? I don't understand it. But then again, I was also never a kid who wanted to be famous, because that is a terrible way to live, I think. I mean, the money'd be great, but everything else would be horrible. Thank you, Archangel Manga. I appreciate that. I'm glad. Because I sometimes get a bit not self-conscious. That's not the right word. But I sometimes feel like if I don't bring up an issue, I feel like sometimes I bring up certain issues a lot. And it's partially because those issues are never addressed by anyone else aside from certain other members of the community. And if I don't talk about them, then they get ignored. It was the way, it was this way 5 years ago. It's less this way now, but if I start drama on Twitter by literally just being like, hey guys, how about we think about how we talk about things, and people get upset and are trying to they get personally offended because they recognize themselves in the scenario that I'm suggesting, and they don't want to change their behavior because they don't think anything's wrong. And then that happens every 6 months. And I mean, I understand if people think maybe that's my problem. And hey, I'm never going to say it's not my problem. I certainly don't shy away from inciting impassioned conversation. But I don't do it to start drama. I don't do it to like call out particular people unless they are actually being like terrible people and hurting real life people. I don't care if you have a bad opinion about media. I don't care if you say stupid stuff. I find it aggravating when people say stuff with all their entire confidence and they can't even do a Google search to confirm this thing that they're so confident about. But I also am not like trying to, end people's YouTube careers over this sort of stuff. which is hilarious to think, because I've been accused of that on some occasions. I don't care. Like, I legitimately don't care. Everyone just do their own thing. I've got my friends. I've got, the places that I hang out. I appreciate people who can recognize that, and who understand who I am and don't just like assume things about me because of secondhand information, because that's also a thing that happens. But when you cause like actual harm, when you cause actual like upset, when you start pushing an envelope and hurting people and making people feel bad as well, like knowing that you're going to be making people feel bad, gossiping, stuff like that. I've said it before, I've said it again. As much as certain people like to tout community on MangaTube, it's never really been a very welcoming or comfortable community. It's never been a group that as a whole I've felt cares about me in any way, shape, or form, outside of the fact that I was a big YouTuber, or to a certain like within this tiny little niche of a niche. Because, man, I don't understand anyone who'd want to be a manga influencer as well, because that shit is dumb, right? There's a lot of, yeah, I've had a lot of personal issues directly with people on Twitter and in YouTube, who, because they think that they can be my friend, because they think that they're so smart at playing this game that they can manipulate me or try to incorrectly represent who I am. I've been the subject of ridicule. I've been the subject of extreme vitriol. I've been the subject of extreme sexism, uncomfortable sexual advances. I've been the subject of just weird stuff. And like, I would never, and I'm like, who am I? I'm literally no one. I'm some loser in her bedroom right now talking about, well, I'm not talking about comics right now, but I typically am talking about comics and why I enjoy comics and or books. Like, there's no, if I didn't love this hobby, and if I didn't enjoy my friends, and if I didn't value so many people who I have happily met through YouTube and through this larger social media presence and whatever else, I would absolutely not be subjecting myself to this. I I don't care enough about like being a YouTube personality to inflict that on myself. And Aisha, you're I mean, maybe so, but my point is that, like, manga doesn't make you a celebrity. Being in any industry doesn't make you a celebrity, or shouldn't really. Idolization of any sort is gross and weird, and also just kind of like takes power away from this person that you apparently care so much about. And if somebody like legitimately, because I don't know where we are in this current cycle of MangaTube, because it's maybe bad to say, but I haven't been paying attention to who's up and coming, new channels, small channels, things like that. Not because I think they're bad or that I'm better than them or anything like that. Like, absolutely not. But I've been through the cycle before. I've been through this, oh, look how close we all are. We're all friends. Look how, like, aren't we just one big community? Hey guys, let's all just talk about manga. Aren't we wonderful? And then how quickly that devolves into cliques, how quickly that devolves into an us versus them mentality, how quickly it devolves into gossip and slander. And I mean, the first time around, I was pretty much the only girl around, which is, kind of uncomfortable in of itself. But when you are the only woman, girl, lady, whatever, in a group, that's when you see the issues of, and I don't know if it's that prevalent now, because we do have so many wonderful women in the community, but like having your opinion devalued because it's you who's saying it, having no one take you seriously because you're not like the rest of the group, so of course we can't agree, or of course we're not going to listen to you. You're seen as overreacting over stuff, like, again, how language and discussion of series can be inherently sexist, which is not an attack on a particular person, but an attack on how society frames male-dominated media versus female audience media. Plus, again, just weird, unwanted sexual advances. People who pretend to be your friends because you have a certain amount of subscribers. People who think that they know you and know your life because they watch a YouTube video about you. People who apparently respect you so much but will never listen to a thing that you say. People who think that this is a career and that manga is going to be paying their bills, and they see it as an investment opportunity, which is bizarre in of itself. And like what Aisha said here is, like, I understand that, and I like on one hand, like, for Aisha, for those who don't know, like, she's partnered with Viz. She does a lot of collaboration stuff with them, or works with them a lot, and that is, she has a presence. She is, more so than I am, an influencer, right? Like, she gets stuff done. People watch her stuff because she's amazing and fun and funny and very authentically herself, and all those good things. But like, I've gotten review copies digitally for a couple series. I will inherently say that this copy of Children of Mootown I was compensated, because I will be reviewing this on the channel. But I had bought this beforehand. Like, I paid for this and had it shipped to me, and then Glacier Bay was incredibly sweet and said, "Hey, we're interested in you reviewing this. How about, we'll just reimburse you the cost for a honest, fair review." And I said, "Absolutely. Thank you. That's wonderful." I've never gotten paid to ever say anything for any company, because who the hell am I? Like, nobody cares. I'm not in a country that matters. I don't have an audience that's like that I can influence enough to to buy things. I would hope that I have encouraged some people to try a new series or discover a series that they haven't heard of before. But I'm not getting people to spend their money on any particular thing. And I think that's pretty, pretty obvious, right? Like, nobody's watching my 3-hour videos being like, oh yeah, that really convinced me to read such and such. Like, I can be as enthusiastic about a title as I want. And sure, maybe 2 people are like, oh, that sounds interesting. But it doesn't, like, I don't think it is changed to sales. But Aisha, that's because you and I have very similar tastes. So inherently, I feel like a recommendation to you is going to be well suited to you. I'm not someone who's like, everyone needs to buy this, because I know everyone shouldn't buy everything. Because that's not how the world works. I wouldn't be encouraging you to buy Fire Punch, because as much as I enjoy that series, I also know that it's not a series you're gonna like. But yeah, was there a point to this? I don't know. Once again, sidetracked. Oh, thank you, Archangel Manga. That's so sweet. It's interesting. And again, this is me just blabbing on about this, is my perception of myself. Everyone's so sweet in the chat. Thank you guys. Self-perception versus actual perception. And again, this is, I guess, going into the value of the audience that I have, i.e. you guys, who I don't think of as an audience. I think of you as friends or colleagues or associates or whatever else. Those with similar interests, those who care enough to listen. I'm not charismatic enough to have 1 million subscribers and get them to buy merch or to do certain things. Oh man, imagine Simply G as a brand. Yikes. No thank you. I'm surprised you didn't put the eyes in there, the looky emojis. Yeah, I guess I'm a worse influence than I expected. And I have encouraged people to spend their money. That is, I'm glad that people have found interest in the things that I talk about. That definitely makes this whole shenanigans worth it, if nothing else. And hopefully you've enjoyed the things that I've encouraged you to spend money on, because that's the important thing. I don't want you to just inherently spend money because I say something's good. I want you to spend money because I say something good is good and that you think that it's interesting. And then you also enjoy it, so you are happy that you spent money on it. But again, it's going into hello Zen, welcome to the live stream. But it goes into this audience idea and my preference of having like 10 people in the live stream, 12 people in the live stream versus 50 versus 100 versus so many people that like I are only there because I have snappy editing skills and I talk about Dragon Ball Z every live stream, or I talk about the latest One Piece chapters. And hey, if you're into that, that's not a bad thing. But like, also, I'm never going to pretend that I'm into something because it's popular. I like if I enjoy something and it's inherently popular, that's cool. That's coincidental and fun. And I will always say that popularity always comes from something. So, there's a reason that something gets popular. But I prefer being my genuine self on here. I prefer being able to talk about all of my terrible opinions, or have a breakdown over Clamp, or have, just go completely mental over my stupid yokai stuff that it interests 4 people and myself, to to have fun with it. To have fun with it. If you're not having fun with your hobbies, then they're not hobbies. They're work. And then why even? I already work a full-time job. I already wake up disgustingly early to do said job. And I'm not getting paid for this, as I reiterated earlier. So why would I spend the time on making this my job? I don't want to quit my 9 to 5 to become a YouTube personality, because that sounds stressful and terrible, and we know the impact on people's mental health and lives when they become that. It's just, yeah. I mean, the way I want to experience this and the way that other people want to experience this is different, and that's fine. But I just am happy, as I said, talking to 10 people on a live stream for 2 hours, talking for 5 hours about all the books that I bought and hopefully read in a month, have a wonderful time chatting or with the podcast, with my wonderful co-host, Ray, who is definitely asleep. She was here at the beginning of the live stream, but she's definitely asleep now. And hanging out with some of my friends on Twitter, off of Twitter, and just being excited about new licenses and ongoing series and stuff that interests me, things that surprise me, and not getting upset when something I dislike gets licensed, because it's all relative. Sometimes people just want to be upset. Sometimes people just in their lives, they want to complicate their lives or be upset about their lives. And I think that's boring and a sad way to live. But it's their choice. It's their decision. I'm not their mother. I'm not in charge of how they live their lives. And if they deem that to be the best way that they get on with things, then more power to them. But it's not. I couldn't do it. But yeah, it is 11 p.m. here. I've been on for legitimately 2 hours. Considering I only read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, that's entirely too long. But you guys encourage maybe for me to talk too much about irrelevant things. It's always fun doing these. It's always nice to take a step back, and it also makes me feel less bad that I don't put out content as regularly as I would like. That in saying that this isn't a job, there's a lot of stuff that I want to do, but also I just don't have the time for it. I work too hard in my real life to then work hard as soon as I get home. I get home and take a nap. I eat food. I go to the gym. I take a nap. and then I sleep all the other rest of the time. And I find that to be the best way to spend my time. I love meeting new people in the community, as long as, you know, we can agree to disagree on things. We can have civil discussion. We can have understanding that we're not going to agree on everything, or that we, you know, people are different, and that we're not all one big happy family community, that we're not all, you know, that we all have to stick together because it's an us versus them mentality, that sometimes it's fine to not get along with people. Sometimes it's fine to not want to be friends with certain people. And what else do I say to that? Buy this one, Children of Mootown, by Glacier Bay. It's been available in print for a little while. It's also available digitally. This is, this is a review copy. This isn't my review for it. I will be doing a separate review in addition to my thoughts on it here. But I was not paid to sponsor this. I just love their books, and it's a cool one, especially if you like alternative manga, if you like the sense of identity in a place and protecting that and uplifting that as well. It's good. It's good. Also, Holic is the best clamp title, and bar none, and Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card is too long for its own good. The end. Thank you guys so much for putting up with me these last couple hours, especially this last hour when I wasn't talking about any books or anything. Thanks for hanging out with me, as always. I do have my haul videos planned to... I was meant to do it yesterday, but I didn't have a whole lot of time. I was meant to do it today, but I didn't have a whole lot of time. I plan to do it tomorrow, but I realized that I won't have a lot of time. So it might be out on Monday. I don't know. We'll see. I do try to get them out at the end of the month, but it's real life. Being an adult takes a lot of time out of your day, sadly. Childhood, thankfully, is not forever, but man, I do miss some aspects of it. Have a wonderful rest of your day, night, whatever it is, wherever you are. A wonderful rest of your weekend. Hopefully where I am, we're not forced into a snap lockdown once again, because we've had a couple of those recently. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone has a wonderful May. Stay healthy, stay safe, get vaccinated, please, if you are eligible to do so, and look after yourself. Read the books that you buy. Don't just hoard them like a dragon. and enjoy yourself. Be happy. And I'll see you next week, guys. Bye till then.